Many, many people have been working for months behind the scenes to make this morning possible. Please join me in a round of applause for the team at the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize members of the Council's Board of Directors who are here with us today. Jim Peruse, Head of Corporate Banking at Truist. Thank you, Jim, for your support. And Dr. Richard Phillips, Dean of the Robinson College of Business at Georgia State University. Thank you, Dean Phillips. So here at the World Affairs Council, we really do pride ourselves on bringing together a unique blend of Metro Atlanta industries and institutions and leaders. And as we've all moved our lives online, work and play and pleasure and family, we actually do find ourselves less frequently in rooms like this, in civic spaces with people we otherwise wouldn't connect with, except maybe online. And is that really connecting? So the audience that are here today, we're actually really proud to say you never know who you're going to meet at a World Affairs Council of Atlanta event. In fact, two women in the back, will you raise your hand, said, well, we didn't know each other until the last World Affairs Council of Atlanta event. And here they are together again this morning. There's a great example. So illustrated in this audience today, we have representatives from international and local governments, including the Quebec Government Office in Atlanta, Fulton County Board of Education, City of Brookhaven. We have soccer organizations, Soccer in the Streets, Inter-Atlanta FC, US Soccer. We have civic organizations, including Atlanta Music Project, YMCA of Metro Atlanta, the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library, the Georgia Council on Economic Education. We have companies, Truist, YKK, Mercedes-Benz, Bank of America. Of course, media. We have Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Rough Draft Atlanta, WABE, the Atlanta Voice. All of you represent the mission of the council, which I just read. It's to actively engage our community so that together we can navigate change, seize opportunity, and shape our region's future. Some personal housekeeping, business housekeeping. The statements made today are those of the speaker and not of the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. This program is on the record. There are media among us. They have purple ribbons in case you'd like to meet them. Today's program is entitled The World Cup in Atlanta, the Making of America's Soccer Capital. Bank of America is the official bank sponsor for the FIFA World Cup 2026, and we are proud to partner with them as presenting sponsor of today's event. Welcome to the stage, Max Olegaria of Bank of America.
Thank you, Ricky. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it's great to be here with all of you this morning. So my name is Max Olegario, and I have the privilege of serving as market executive for Bank of America's Global Commercial Bank for the state of Georgia, based here in Atlanta. So on behalf of the 5,200 teammates at Bank of America who call this region home, thank you to the World Affairs Council of Atlanta for hosting and thoughtfully curating this outstanding three-part series. So and thank you to all of you, business leaders, civic partners, community stakeholders, for joining us throughout this journey. So over the past few months, this series has explored the global power of football from multiple perspectives. So we began with Katie Kirkpatrick, who helped frame the World Cup as a catalytic economic and international opportunity for this region. We then marked International Women's Day with Kelly O'Hara, reminding us of the game's ability to advance equity, leadership, and inclusion on and off the pitch. Today's conversation brings it all together. So as we close this series, we shift our focus to legacy, what it truly means for Atlanta to step onto the world stage as America's soccer capital, and how the decisions being made today will shape the city's global identity for decades to come. So we couldn't ask for a better voice to help lead that discussion than U.S. Soccer CEO JT Batson. So Bank of America has served Atlanta consumers and businesses for more than 100 years, and during that time, we've seen how global moments can redefine a city. From the 1996 Olympics to multiple Super Bowls, international sporting events have consistently elevated Atlanta's profile. But the FIFA World Cup 2026 is different, through both scale and lasting impact. It's the largest World Cup in history, reaching billions of people around the globe. As official bank of the FIFA World Cup 2026, we see this moment as far more than a sporting event. It's a global inflection point. Here in Atlanta, the tournament is projected to drive more than $1 billion in economic impact, attract hundreds of thousands of visitors, and create opportunities that extend well beyond the matches themselves. Nearly half of those visitors may never even enter the stadium. but they will experience our neighborhoods, our small businesses, our cultural institutions, and of course our people. So that's why this conversation matters. So whether you lead a global company or local enterprise, whether your work touches sports directly or not, the World Cup represents an opportunity to think bigger about growth, workforce development, global connectivity, and Atlanta's role in international commerce as well as diplomacy. So at Bank of America, our commitment is clear. We are here to help our clients and communities prepare strategically for what's ahead, turning a global moment into long-term inclusive growth. So we remain deeply committed to partnership. Collaborations like these with the World Affairs Council of Atlanta and the U.S. Soccer Federation are essential to ensure that Atlanta doesn't just host the world, but leads on the world stage and ensures accessibility of the beautiful game for years to come for all players, all fans, and communities. So today, as we conclude the series, we do so with momentum, optimism, and a shared sense of responsibility for what comes next. So thank you again for being here, for your leadership, and for your partnership. We're excited for today's discussion and for the future of Atlanta, is building together. Thank you.
He played and later helped run his hometown club, Augusta Arsenal, serving as a referee, a signer, coach, advisory board member, doing everything from lining fields to recruiting coaches. A believer in the power of teamwork, Batson's first software project helped assign youth referees for tournaments. A fun fact, he did joke as a kid, he never dreamed of playing in a World Cup, only of organizing one. That is a future CEO, if I ever heard one. After a career as an executive and entrepreneur in media, advertising, and technology, Batson brought that innovative, problem-solving mindset to U.S. soccer, where he has helped lead major initiatives, including the creation of the U.S. Soccer Development Fund. A Stanford graduate, Batson also serves on several nonprofit and arts boards and continues to champion soccer's power to inspire and unite. Welcome to the stage, JT Batson.
Hello,
JT and I. Okay, great.
Morning.
Good morning. So for those who may not fully understand, let's just begin with what U.S. Soccer Federation does.
Sure. Well, good morning. It's great to be with you all. The comment about wanting to organize a World Cup versus play in, and of course I wanted to play in a World Cup, but I was self-aware enough to know that was never going to happen. So U.S. Soccer, we view ourselves as being in service to soccer. Our role is to support those who are bringing soccer to life in communities all across the country. We have three big things that we are focused on. One is we want our teams to win. So we want our teams to win World Cups. Obviously, you had Kelly here recently, World Cup champion, also a good Stanford grad from Georgia, so and lots in common. Second thing is we want soccer to be the #1 played sport in every community. And we're very intentional around using the word in every community. Obviously, there are parts of this country, there are parts of Atlanta where soccer is the #1 sport, but we want it to be the #1 sport for everyone. And the last is we want U.S. Soccer to be yours. We want everyone who cares about our sport to feel fully connected to our organization. So what does that mean practically? Think about our organization in sort of three parts. One, we have our men's and women's national teams and all of the teams that support that. Think of that as like running a pro sports organization. You have very highly paid coaches, very highly paid athletes who are at the top of their game all around the world. We then think of it as like a trade association business, so we're responsible for all the refereeing, the coaching education, all of the ecosystem health and standards for soccer in this country. And then the last piece is think of us as having a social impact organization focused on soccer accessibility, soccer in schools, with Bank of America actually, and making sure that everyone has access to our sport. So a pretty broad and diverse organization, about 600 people based now here in Atlanta, which we're excited to call home.
Wow, fantastic. So we know that Metro Atlanta is one of the most diverse regions in the country, and we talk about the diversity of global sport, and you go to any soccer game even here, and it's a very diverse audience. So how does that diversity actually fuel soccer's growth and relevance here?
Well, what's exciting about soccer in America is the soccer fan, on average, is slightly younger, slightly more diverse, and slightly more tech savvy than any other sport in the country. And if you think about trends in the country, well, that's what our country looks like. And the other thing that we had to embrace, which is new for people who grew up in soccer, where in the 80s and 90s, certainly in Atlanta, certainly in large swaths of the country, soccer was not the main sport. And so we still think of ourselves in some ways as the little engine that could. And what we've had to come to embrace is soccer is actually really big. 70% of Americans are soccer fans. 20% of Americans describe themselves as obsessed soccer fans. And so you do the math on that, and soccer looks like America. And obviously, you go to Atlanta United games, you go to our games here in Atlanta, and it certainly reflects that. You know, the dynamism, the energy, the diversity of the crowd of all ages, all backgrounds is something that is certainly a lot of fun, and it makes more people want to jump on board, which is very cool.
Turning to the Arthur M. Blank U.S. Soccer National Training Center, which will be the official name, and your opening is in May, which is incredible. Just, what, a week or two away? Congratulations. You have actually described this as, quote, the physical embodiment of our ambition as a soccer nation, which is kind of like everything you just said, but in a building, or in a huge, actually, campus, I should say. So what convinced you that Atlanta was the right home for this?
So when we were exploring the country as to where our right home should be, a part of my role was to meet with local business and government leaders. And I remember when I went into the state capitol building and met with Governor Kemp, and he starts into his sales pitch, and he goes, wait a second, you're from Georgia, I don't need to do this. and turns to talk about all sorts of other things. And I think actually that was true. And it clicked for me, even though I had not lived in Georgia in quite some time, that Atlanta, as you all know, likes to come together to do big things. And pulling off a national training center and a headquarters, certainly at the scale and pace that we were looking to do, is something that required a whole bunch of people to come together. You needed state and local governments, you needed philanthropic leaders, you needed businesses to really step up, and that's what happened. And one of the things that often happens in projects like this is you make grand forecasts as to how many people are going to be there or how big it's going to be. Well, it's bigger, and we have more employees than we ever forecasted when we went through this project, and a lot of that was due to Atlanta. The sort of energy here, both from the folks who are already here in terms of supporting us, but also in terms of employees who wanted to move here from all around the world. Soccer is the most competitive market in the world. We've still yet to come up with another industry that is more global and more competitive. And that means our talent can literally work anywhere. And so if we want to compete, we have to have a place where talent wants to live. And as you know, because you're here, Atlanta's a pretty great place for that, and we're excited about it.
And we are delighted to hear that Atlanta is a place that people want to move to work from all over the world. That may not have been the case even 20, 30 years ago.
A little anecdote on that. So we were in Chicago before, and we found it infinitely easier to recruit here to Atlanta than we did to Chicago. Wow. It's a Georgia kid, that was cool.
Better weather?
That helped, but I think as you know, what is so cool about Atlanta is the diversity of the people, but also the opportunities for where you live and sort of the job opportunities here. And it's not just the folks we're recruiting. Of course, you're also recruiting their families. Mm-hmm. And the ability for people to choose any type of sort of housing experience at all ranges of pricing. Of course, we always want it to be a little cheaper for everybody. But then their ability to go to great schools and their ability to work, their partners, spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, to be able to work in other great industries. And that has been a huge selling point in terms of getting people here.
So this will be the first time U.S. Soccer Federation is truly centralized. So what performance gains do you expect to receive or see from this centralized model?
So it may be hard to believe. So for over 110 years, we've never really had a home. We've always been a traveling circus. And for those of you who run organizations, which is I'm guessing most of you in the room, you know that your organization gets good at what you have to get good at. And so we got really good at moving around and being a pop-up shop every time we were hosting a national team camp. And it almost becomes in your DNA that that's who we are. And we're actually having to unlearn that. And I think it's actually going to take a couple of years before we fully sort of get to take advantage of having a world-class home and all that comes with it. And just a very practical thing, for a large percentage of our employees, that means you're living on the road. As the teams are playing all over the country, all over the world, you're there with them. Before to set up and after to break down. Well, now you can be home. And I don't think people have fully wrapped their head around that. And so one of the metrics I'm most focused on is how many more nights is someone sleeping in their own bed than it was before. And I think just those little things like that will have such a profound impact on the team beyond the obvious of having world-class facilities, of course, is amazing for our athletes, for our coaches and everything. But I think there are going to be some more subtle things that are actually more transformational for us than we appreciated.
I'm, of course, going to ask you about women's professional soccer, but before we pivot, talk about what's on the campus. Like, help us envision it for those who haven't been. Has anybody been down there, even driven by? I think it's still pretty new to most folks, so help us envision it.
So we're about 20 minutes south of the airport in Fayette County. If you've ever been to Trilith, we're right next to Trilith. So Dan Cathy donated the land for the facility. It's about 230 acres. We've developed 150 of those acres. We have 17 fields. We have about 400,000 square feet of indoor space. So think of it as an office headquarters, a high-performance sports facility, and a conference center all smashed into one. And the largest collection of really, really, really nice fields of any sport that you'll ever find anywhere in the world. The folks who worked on the project said no one has ever built this many nice fields in one go, ever. And there were some learnings from that. A fun thing I just realized is we have so many high-end fields that it's actually cheaper for us to have our own lawnmower blade sharpener on site than it is to ship. Normally you ship them away if you have a golf course or whatever, ship them away. But there's so many high-end fields that it's actually cheaper for us to just buy the machine. So it's always fun on the tours. Most of the questions end up being about the grass. I've learned more about grass than I ever thought I would know. But yeah, no, it's an incredible facility. I think we're happy to share with you all. I think it's May 20th, 21st. We have an open house for a lot of our partners and stakeholders, but we'll include you all in the friend group if you guys want to come check it out. The first main event we'll have there is our Adapt and Thrive Invitational. A lot of people don't know that U.S. Soccer has more disability national teams than any other country in the world. Wow. Very proud about that. The training center is the first training center in the world designed to support disability athletes, which is very cool. And so the first camp will be our Adapt and Thrive Invitational, which is not only all 5 of our disability national teams, but all the youth organizations from around the country who are supporting disability soccer, which is a pretty inspirational time.
Incredible. We'll be sure to get everybody's email address to y'all, to your folks, to get that invitation. So, of course, Atlanta is welcoming women's professional soccer in 2028. So what does this moment mean for women's sports?
Well, how many of y'all remember the Atlanta Beat?
Yay!
I was at the first Atlanta Beat game at Bobby Dodd Stadium many years ago. So there's a great history of women's professional soccer here in Atlanta. I actually used to referee the Atlanta Beat games, their inter-squad scrimmages before I went up to college. I remember how terribly hot it was at the Georgia Tech football practice facility when we would do that. Women's soccer has been on an incredible growth trajectory. Of course, the U.S. women's national team is the most valuable women's sports property in the world. The U.S. women's national team makes more in revenue than any other sports property by far. And the growth of that team, of course, has led to the growth of the NWSL. The incredible owners, including now Arthur Blank and his team, leaning in and investing in world-class facilities and world-class environments for our athletes is really amazing. And what's been fun is if you have seen some of the new teams in the NWSL who've come online over the last little bit, Denver, almost 70,000 people at their opening match a few weeks ago. Boston is building a new stadium. There's, Columbus just announced their team with the Haslams a few weeks ago. So there's a lot of great momentum. But I know because Josh Blank has showed me their training facility looks incredible that they just broke ground on a Friday. And then I think everyone's going to be really excited about the team name and the colors. Which I won't say anything else other than they're going to be a lot of fun and they're very Atlanta.
I was literally researching the team colors last night.
They're very cool. They're very cool. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I think the opportunity for everyone to be able to see themselves in sort of the future of what soccer is in the region is very, very cool.
whether it's a person with disabilities or a woman or somebody else, we want soccer to be in every community, as you said. So you have these incredible statistics about the power and value of women's soccer particularly, and yet sponsors under-index on women's sports. What is the ROI case you make?
We are actually in negotiation with one of our current sponsors for renewal, and they have an internal metric around what's the ROI on the sports sponsorship, and they want it to be 2-to-1. And actually, the data just came back last week, and we were 4-to-1, which means we're underpricing. But one of the things that is unique about U.S. soccer is you have the women's national team and the men's national team. You have the disability national teams. You also have all of our youth national teams. And you have the fact that we represent all of soccer in America. And we found great support from commercial partners here in Atlanta. So Coca-Cola was a huge reason why we're here. Arthur organized a series of dinners when we were trying to be able to pull off coming to Atlanta. Actually, a number of them right down the street. And B. Perez from Coca-Cola was one of them. She was sitting right next to me. She goes, "We're going to sponsor you no matter what, but I can assure you the check will be bigger and the contract will be longer if you're here in Atlanta." And they more than delivered on that. Home Depot also stepped up coming out of that dinner. And then Bank of America, who I know is not based in Atlanta but has such a great presence here, has become one of our great partners. And actually a few weeks ago, we announced a great Soccer at Schools initiative, which is a nationwide initiative with Bank of America. I just saw the commercials that are going to be running this summer in the World Cup. They are absolutely awesome. And the fact that Bank of America is leaning in the way they are around how do you drive positive social outcomes using soccer very much matches with our mission, and it matches with how we partner with our partners. Coca-Cola Foundation underwrites an incredible internship program, which actually kicks off in a couple weeks. It's mostly students from the Georgia region who are getting an opportunity to work in soccer. And one of the things, and I know Georgia State is a partner here, one of the reasons why we were so interested in coming to Atlanta was the great education community here. And I mentioned the reason why I describe part of our mission as like a trade association. We're focused on developing talent for the entire ecosystem. Of course, you need coaches and players. You also need referees. You need business folks. You need medical folks. You need folks working in media, in law. A big part of my job, unfortunately, even though both my parents are lawyers, is dealing with a lot of law-related things. And so sports law is a booming area and a very important one. And so how we think about being able to collaborate with local institutions beyond our corporate partners is also a huge part of what makes Atlanta great.
Well, I know we have Georgia State representatives here, so if you'd like to talk to them about the law school or the business school, I'm sure they'd love to chat with you. It's funny, the World Affairs Council just hosted General Stanley McChrystal, and he was talking about recruiting for the U.S. military. And we have this image of like tough people with muscles and guns, and he said, actually, most of the U.S. military jobs are like in an office, right? Or somewhere where we can train you to have a specific skill, but you don't have to look like a soldier or be able to shoot, a target from a certain distance to serve admirably in the U.S. military. And thank you for sharing just how many career opportunities there are.
Which is new, and actually when I graduated from college, the opportunities to work in soccer, if you weren't a player, which was going to be me, or a coach, were essentially none. There were a handful of jobs in our sport, and one of the things that's been most gratifying is the growth in career opportunities. Whereas anyone graduating from college now can have an incredible career in our sport, and that is direct result of all the great work of all the folks who've come before us on this, and I think is what gives me great hope and excitement around our future, because you've got a whole generation of people who soccer is now their profession, and as y'all understand around building ecosystems and building markets, you're only as good as the people that are in it, and what we see from our own employee base, but what you see from folks who work in the sport, it gives you a lot of energy and excitement for the future.
So you've explained why Atlanta was an attractive host for the U.S. Soccer Federation's home, but pivoting now to world sports, particularly like the 2026 Men's World Cup, what defining attributes have made Atlanta the compelling host for that and other international major sporting events?
Well, I mean, y'all know how easy it is
Yes.
as a fan here, and as someone who travels a lot to a lot of sporting events, Atlanta sets such a high bar for what that experience is, and being able to obviously get to the Atlanta airport from anywhere in the world, being able to get to downtown or your hotel on MARTA, or whether you're taking an Uber or cab, it's super easy. And then once you're there, you can walk. And that is so unique relative to certainly in the US, but even around the world, to where you have a great, truly world-class stadium, so accessible. And then all the fun that comes from being in the area to where it becomes a big party. And even for the U.S. men's and women's national team games, 35% of our fans travel from more than 150 miles to come to our games. And so our men just played at Mercedes-Benz in March, 140,000 people. So you can do the math as to how many people came in from out of town. They're looking to have a good time. They're not just coming in and out for a game. They want to have an experience. And if you think about the World Cup, it's going to be 8 of those. The best way that I can describe it in sort of an Atlanta context is imagine sort of 8 SEC championship weekends, except people are coming in from even farther. And so they want to stay a little longer and have a little more fun because it's not UGA versus Alabama who does it every year.
Every year.
And so no offense to the Auburn grads, I guess, but I think there's a real opportunity for the city to continue to showcase itself to where more and more people want to come back. They want to do business here. They want to work here, and we're excited about that. And for us, obviously, we're focused on this summer, but for us, we're thinking much longer term. My hope is that the impact of U.S. soccer deciding to make Atlanta its home has a much bigger impact on the region than even this summer does, and we're very focused on that.
We are also lucky to have our stadium actually in Atlanta. I don't know if you all have seen the TikTok influencers talking about all the international folks flying into like Boston or New York are going to realize how far the stadium is from Boston or New York, in New York's case, in a different state. So well done to Arthur. The Braves, it's not the end of the world to get to a Braves game, but I went on Friday night and it was out of town, for me at least, living in the city. So in practical terms, what becomes possible for Atlanta because of the World Cup that would not otherwise be possible?
Well, one of the things that I actually, I know this is not the answer folks expect, is Atlanta is, as you all know, has made it to a point where obviously things like the World Cup are amazing, but Atlanta can do big things and is known globally now, even without events like the World Cup, which was not the case generations ago, where big events like the Olympics, big events like the Super Bowl were some of the few moments where the world focused on Atlanta. Atlanta has, of course, far eclipsed that to where people are here constantly, and it's a culturally relevant, it's a commercially relevant, certainly educationally relevant city and region. And so events like the World Cup become accelerants or top-ups. I don't think they're required anymore for people to know what Atlanta's about and where Atlanta's going. And so I think leaning into it with that sense of pride and belief of, hey, we're already in the big time, and this is an opportunity for us to showcase that. We don't have to prove anything that maybe we felt like we had to in '96 or in other moments. We're already there, and I think having that is sort of behind you is exciting as we get to welcome the world, and there are going to be people who get to experience our country for the first time, certainly experience our region for the first time, and I know folks here are great at hospitality, and so everyone coming here will really enjoy it.
And if we show out well for this World Cup, maybe we'll get the 2031 Women's World Cup.
Yeah, so U.S. is bidding for the 2031 Women's World Cup. Good news, we are the only bidder. But I think one of the things that we're very passionate about, I know we touched on the growth of women's soccer. We've been huge advocates for expanding the Women's World Cup to 48 teams. And the 2031 Women's World Cup will be the first one of 48 teams. And we weren't just advocates for it expanding, but we were also advocates for FIFA announcing it very early, which they did, with a very specific reason. There are a lot of countries around the world that are probably never going to compete in a Men's World Cup, and certainly not for a Men's World Cup. But the women's soccer market around the world is still relatively nascent. Of course, it's grown a ton. But the opportunities for countries to succeed in a Women's World Cup far eclipse what that could look like on the men's side. And so countries being able to invest in women's soccer and girls soccer in their regions early so that they have an opportunity to play in the 2031 Women's World Cup and potentially even go on a run in the Women's World Cup, we hope spurs hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of investment into women's soccer around the world. And so FIFA really leaned in on that, give them a lot of credit, and we're excited about what that'll mean for the game. And then also, we last year launched the Kang Women's Institute, thanks to a very generous donation by Michelle Kang, who owns the Washington Spirit, as well as a couple other women's soccer teams around the world, with a very specific goal of taking best practices for what leads to success in girls and women's soccer, and how do we make that accessible to the full sort of globe, bless you, as it relates to how you can adopt that, whether you're running a small club or trying to compete on the world stage. And then the other piece that we do with the Kang Women's Institute is research specifically on female athletes. A very, 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 very small percentage of funding for sports research is on females. One of the lines which always stuck with me is, females are not small men. And so extrapolating sort of what to do medically just because females are physically, smaller than men is not a very medically sound or scientifically smart way to do it. And so, we're proud of our work there and very much, look to scale that.
Michelle Kang is a transformative leader for women's soccer. We would love to host her at the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. So stay tuned if we can entice her down here. So we've been talking a lot about inclusion, which is wonderful. So for communities that are historically excluded from elite sports, what legacy commitments can U.S. soccer make to ensure that the World Cup drives durable participation across Metro Atlanta?
Well, I like the term durable. Very often in major events, you're looking for the PR photo, or you do an event that drives some energy, but when the event leaves, so does said energy. And from the get-go, we've been focused on building sort of enduring systems that allow for tens of millions of people to benefit over time. And we, a couple years ago, announced the creation of the Soccer Forward Foundation, which is specifically focused on how do we get soccer into more communities, and how do we do that in a way that is sustainable. And how many of you are familiar with an organization called the Trust for Public Land?
Oh, wow, yeah, sure.
They do a lot of great work in the region. I happen to be on the board of a foundation that gives a lot of money to the Trust for Public Land. And as I was hearing more about their approach, it clicked for me around how we've thought about approaching this sort of scaling of soccer in communities all across the country. And even though U.S. soccer has grown a lot, so we've tripled our revenue over the last 4 years, you go, hey, that's great. But that's a drop in the bucket relative to the resources required to make sure that everyone who wants to play our sport can play our sport. And if we were going to do this, it ultimately was going to have to be state and local governments, school districts, YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, other NGOs, local businesses leaning in to make soccer super accessible. And of course, every community in our country is different. Who controls the schools? Who controls the parks? Sort of what are the funding models? Is it sales tax versus property tax? Is it all of these things that matter? And so taking a very local approach in terms of activation and influence, while providing the underlying systems, the resources, the research, the best practices that can be done centrally, and the advocacy to be able to drive this change. And so a couple fun anecdotes. The city of Los Angeles, for the first time in their history, more kids play soccer than do baseball or basketball. Obviously, an incredible history of baseball and basketball in Los Angeles. Soccer now is by far the #1 played sport in the city rec programs. And we're going to be announcing a very ambitious target for what that looks like. And soccer's grown so much participation-wise, they're now ripping out baseball fields to put in soccer fields. There are all these sort of structural things that we realized as we did a lot of research around why certain sports had certain advantages. And a lot of it were, sort of government funding models from decades and decades ago around what went into the high school facilities, what went into your local park. So, most parks, there's a basketball hoop. There's not necessarily a place to play soccer. And so there are all these little things like that that actually, as you start shifting those decisions, lead to hundreds of millions and then billions of dollars of investment that make the sport more accessible. So we're very much thinking long-term on this. We're very stubborn, so we want to make sure we get it right.
And as a soccer fan, I know that when little kids start playing soccer early, men and women, boys and girls, our talent pool for recruiting for the national teams really expands.
Without question. One of the things that I think our country has an opportunity to get better at is embracing that the goal of sports for kids is to have fun. So I've got 2 little kids, and seeing my son is 3 get excited about kicking the soccer ball, and he wants to pretend to be a dinosaur while he does it. But that's what it's about.
Yeah.
We and certainly U.S. soccer. You think of elite. You think of elite coaching, technique, but it's fun. And if you don't love it, you're not going to do it. And so the opportunity for us, and often people say, how can we help? Well, actually, that's how you can help, is by, in your community, pushing to where when kids are young, it's fun. And the really simple way to think about it is you want your kid to have more touches on the ball, and you want them to have more smiles. And if you do that, we're going to produce a lot more good players, and we're going to have a lot better society.
So does your son want to play in a World Cup or organize one?
He wants more dinosaurs.
Okay. We'll ask him in another 10 years. So 10 years from now, what measurable traits would signal that Atlanta truly is America's soccer capital?
Well, I think we are.
Amen. I love this. Let's skip this question.
But I think the opportunity is to continue to build a culture where people from around the world want to come be here to experience what it means to be a part of soccer here in Atlanta. And I think we're already starting to see that, and I think there's a real opportunity to extend that over the next decade.
We're going to go to audience questions in just a moment, but I want to point out the microphones on either side. If you'd like to ask a question, we're going to do something a little different. Rather than pass the mic, you can go up to the table and the mic will be waiting for you if you have a question. So just kind of wrapping up on leadership. Atlanta's edge is its coalition capacity. Corporate, civic, academic, grassroots, this room represents the swath of Atlanta and Atlantans who feel invested in soccer. What partnerships, or partnership, if it's one, do you most need that doesn't yet exist? And what is your ask of this room to make it real?
So last week, the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau had their annual luncheon, and the theme was all around soccer and the history of soccer in Atlanta, where it is today, and then they ended with a great thing about youth soccer and sort of where soccer is going in the region. And what was most exciting about that was you had 700 business leaders in Atlanta coming together to talk about the growth of their industry where soccer was the theme. And for us, it's actually rooms like this where people are coming together, where there's a common cause of our sport in our region, and we just want more of that. And as I mentioned, one of our 3 generational ambitions of U.S. soccer is for U.S. soccer to be yours. We want everyone who cares about our sport to feel part of it and to feel connected to our organization to help drive it forward. So whether you want more kids to be able to play soccer, or whether you want our national teams to win World Cups, or you want everything in between, you all play a critical role in that. And so we're excited about being here. We're excited about everything that so many of you do to make our sport better, and we're hopeful to be able to support you.
What questions do we have? Sorry, it's running the mic can get awkward. We'll see if this is less awkward. Please introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Keith Pepper with Rough Draft Atlanta. I'm an Atlanta native. I moved back after being away for 23 or so years. So I am all in on Atlanta, but I'm curious, are other cities, because we only have a view here,
Sure.
do other cities get as excited about the World Cup coming as we are?
Great question.
So we'll put it in sort of order. It's a really good question. So I think Kansas City might be the most excited. And if you think about a city like Kansas City, for a large percentage of people, this can be their only time ever hearing about Kansas City. And I don't mean that, but just it's true. And so don't confuse folks. And so I think whereas let's go LA and New York, while folks are certainly excited, life will go on in LA, whether or not the World Cup shows up or not. And so I think you've got different levels of civic engagement by virtue of how big the platform is there. Now, in New York and LA are the number one and number two soccer cities in the country in terms of just general fandom are New York and LA. Why? Because they're the two biggest cities. Mm-hmm. So there can be lots and lots of folks there that are very excited. But I think the cities like Kansas City, cities like Seattle, Houston, very much view this as Dallas as an opportunity to tell their story in a way that they otherwise don't get to tell it. I think the comment earlier though of around how easy Atlanta is. If you run through where all the stadiums are, Seattle, Atlanta, sort of Philly, those are the only ones where you're in the city. And so you could be in Kansas City, but never actually get to experience the cool parts of Kansas City because the stadium's not right there. And so I think from a opportunity to tell the story and really engage and get to know the area, Atlanta certainly is in a great spot.
We'll go over to this side now. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Juan Carlos Porero. I live in Carrollton, Georgia, west
Sure.
of here.
Yeah.
So very excited about your training facilities. I first put one comment about pushing your schools, local schools, and your local cities to put just goals in grass, in public parks. My kid didn't have a place like 2 years ago to go with friends to play for his birthday, or also like a 10-year-old, 8-year-old. We talked with the city. They have some fields, some goals in some place, right? They put it in 10 places across the city. A lot of kids play.
I love it.
So push cities, and the schools also did that. Just put some little balls everywhere, and now kids are touching ball.
I love it.
My question is about the pipeline of soccer players.
Sure.
The United States has the tradition of going to college, and colleges are the ones that are the pipeline for professionals, but soccer in the world has not been like that.
Yes.
Is the objective of soccer, US soccer, to go and get scholarships like women's soccer does to college, or it's going to be more the clubs doing that, a combination? That's kind of my question.
Great question. Well, one, I love your energy to get goals in more public spaces, and what makes the sport so great is how cheap it is. You just need a ball and something that pretends to be a goal, and and the more that we normalize sort of free play and playing in the park, the better it's going to be. And so you don't need a perfect field, out in the suburbs to be able to have fun playing soccer. You just need a ball, and ideally a semi-flat space, and a goal is even better. The question around the pipeline, so the men's and women's soccer ecosystems in the United States and around the world, but we're talking about the US, are very different. Of course, the US has an incredible history of investing in women's sports ahead of the world. And soccer certainly benefited with that, with Title IX and what that meant in terms of college opportunities and how that flowed through from a youth soccer standpoint. But what it's meant is that more opportunities for elite sort of soccer play in America than anywhere else in the world through college. And if any of you really follow women's soccer, there's the professional league in England is called the Women's Super League. The simple math is the amount of money that those clubs spend on their teams is way smaller than what D1's women's soccer is in the US. And so the amount of resources that go into women's soccer in this country is awesome. However, the challenge, though, is that model was optimized for a prior era. College soccer is only a few months long, and the best players play all year round. And one of the things that we've been working on with college leaders is actually evolving what the college model looks like. And actually, there's a vote coming up in a few weeks, months, around evolving the men's college season, and then also doing some supplemental program on the women's side to where college soccer continues to be a great pathway for players who want to play at the top level. On the men's side, college soccer is very unlikely to be the predominant sort of pathway for players who are going to play at the top levels and certainly compete for World Cups. The market has long grown outside of that, and the best players in the world. We actually had a 16-year-old American play yesterday for Borussia Dortmund in Germany. So our top young players are playing all around the world, whether it's here at Atlanta United or in clubs all around. And so the market, there's just so much more money and so much more opportunity there. And of course, to be great, you have to play against other great players. And so you want to go do that. But it's going to be a combination thereof. And always think about the women's ecosystem as different than the men's ecosystem. And a big part of our focus is to lean into the structural advantages we have as the U.S. And college soccer is a structural advantage we have. And so we want to make sure that it's as great as it can be.
Thank you, Title IX. Over here.
My name is Brian Wallace. I'm a high school soccer coach for 20 plus years.
Love it.
And I'm now a soccer parent. So I would imagine many people in this room can't identify with the coaching part, but probably with the athlete parent.
How many soccer parents do we have here? Probably a lot.
Yeah,
excellent.
A lot. So my question is, and I heard this from all my high school parents who said, just wait, just wait, just wait, is my son is part of the ECNL program. And so my wife and I sat down, started tallying stuff up, and it's $7,000 or $8,000 probably to play in that program. And as a high school coach, I wonder, we have scholarships for our players to play high school soccer, which is still not cheap. Are we pricing kids out of potential talent out of our soccer pool, and are we letting kids fall through the cracks that just can't afford that that level of coaching? And what is your plan for USA Soccer to do something about that?
Well, to your first two questions, absolutely and absolutely. And I think one of the big opportunities that we all have is to lean in to address that. And if you think about soccer in America, looking at it through a slightly different lens, and it relates directly back to your question. So soccer in America is a large and growing market. There's over $10 billion spent on soccer in this country, but it's highly fragmented. And what that's led to is some of the sort of downsides of it's too expensive. Definitely it's too expensive for most people who play. And it's unclear what it is that you're signing up for and why. And I think one of the big opportunities that we have is to address both of those things. And one of the things that we view as the legacies of the 2026 World Cup is addressing just that. And this is deep systems change. I learned a long time ago. How many of y'all work in for-profit businesses? Most. How many of you ever taken a business to a new market, to a new country? I learned a long time ago, if you enter a new market and you don't learn the rules of said market, it chews you up and spits you out. And you can ignore capitalism at your peril, but if we're going to be able to directly address both the cost and the experience that players and their families have with our sport, we have to lean into comprehensive set of solutions for this, which we are committed to. It unfortunately will take years, but we view that as one of our biggest opportunities. The couple small sort of proof points around that are some of the moves we've made around starting to align the soccer ecosystem and unify the soccer ecosystem to where the resources that today are spent on having kids travel all over the place can be spent on getting more kids playing in their local communities. And right now, as you know, you could live in Atlanta and there could be a team down the street, but you don't play them because they play in a different league or a different ecosystem. And those are all the things that we have to go address head on, and we're certainly committed to doing that. But I think you're absolutely right. It's too expensive, and the sort of experience for players and their families is something that we got to improve, and we're big believers in doing that.
I was hoping you said my fees would be cut in half next year.
I can say it.
And over here?
Awesome. Hi, good morning. Mary Ann Maloney, CEO of Bold Impact Ventures and proud Auburn alumna.
I love it. I love it.
Given Mr. Blank's longstanding commitment to sustainability, which is exemplified beautifully through Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the fact that we can look out these windows and see Atlanta is indeed the city in a forest, how are you embedding sustainability, or how have you embedded sustainability into the new training center in a way that reduces environmental impact, but also unlocks new revenue streams and strategic partnerships?
Great. Well, I love that question. So when we open in a few weeks, we are a LEED certified building. All of our energy is renewable energy on the facility, and that's thanks to great local partnerships with our suppliers and partners here. One of the, I loved your comment around looking out and seeing the forest. For when you come visit and you're on the facility, you're in the middle of a forest, and that's one of the things that we get such great feedback from. It's like, wow, it feels so serene. It feels, feels like you're in this sort of oasis of soccer, and so we think that feel is important for the experience. But of course, us being positive contributors to the environment, that went into the design of the facility itself. Obviously, the building, but even how we kept sort of dirt on site, how we've done everything from our water retention ponds. You're stretching my knowledge of all of this stuff, but it is something that was on the front end of the design, and something that we thought was super important, because you have to remember, most of the people who are experiencing the National Training Center are going to experience it outside. And so making sure that we were a great part of the community and a great steward from an environmental standpoint has been super important to us, and we're proud of our work there.
We have a question over here on this side.
I'm Steve Grand, and I just wanted maybe to hear a little bit more from you about strategy for talent development. How do you get better coaches over time at all levels? How do you get more talented players, younger players to Europe, those kinds of things?
Well, one is actually, I think one of our goals needs to be to not have the goal for those players to go to Europe. And I understand why that's the case today on the men's side. But the part of the way we win is that our clubs are the clubs where those players can play and grow, which means you as a fan want to go watch them, pay money to watch them on television, which grows our market here, which allows us to actually invest more in youth development. So one of the simple ways that the fees go down is actually our clubs are more successful to where they have more money to flow through the soccer ecosystem. And this is really wonky stuff, but actually the part of the reason why soccer is so accessible around the world is, one, their costs are cheaper, just the costs in America a little more expensive. But two is the way that the men's soccer ecosystems there have developed. is there's hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that goes into youth development by virtue of the success of the professional clubs. It's very new that MLS clubs are investing in player development. This is sort of a less than 10-year thing. And while we have a lot of work to do on the quality of coaches around the country, and we have a number of initiatives on that front, and of course we always need to produce more good players, the US and Japan were the only two countries that won their groups in the U17s and U20 World Cups last year. And if you look at MLS this season, there's been a big boom in youth minutes of American young players. Part of it's just timing of those things flowing through. But ultimately, for us to succeed, we have to be way more integrated and aligned as a national team program and our clubs. We have to get way, way, way more kids in high-quality experiences with high-quality coaching. And a big part of that is reducing costs, to the earlier question. And so that is a big bet we're making at U.S. Soccer and how we're partnering with MLS and then also with NWSL. But I also would say there's a lot of green shoots for us in terms of what's going on there, which will take a few more years before you fully see.
Hey, we have a question over here on this side.
Good morning. Good morning. I've got a quick question. So just for a bit of context, I was doing a bit of research around the Euros 2000, I've been 4 years old then, where Germany failed to perform well, and then as a catalyst from that particular event is that they looked at the performance model. My understanding of it is that before they were very direct, they were focused more on the athletic parts of it rather than the technical aspect of the player. So they created the German Federation created this model where they effectively agreed on what the playing philosophy of the game would be. And in doing so, they made sure that they allowed different clubs to produce more technically gifted players. And that sort of created a pathway for the Philip Lam, Sebastian Schweinsteigers, and so forth. Is there an identity or playing philosophy that the Federation of the US adheres to? Because ultimately, I think that would position you guys in a way to create that archetypal player.
Yep.
Coming from the UK, as you can probably tell by my accent, and I was actually born in Portugal, so I've got a unique experience experiencing football in many different ways. We come from that technical background.
Sure.
The emphasis and the spillover of all the different sports in the US are much more geared towards that athletic build. But football, I feel like, in my opinion, is a technical sport. So
Sure.
Is there an identity there? I don't want to overrun. Is there an identity there and you guys working towards that? And how does that align across the different clubs?
Sure. So I underappreciated how soccer clued in this crowd was. So we actually very recently announced the launch of the US Way, which is our playing philosophy as well as strategy around how we win at the elite levels. I think what often gets missed in the German example or in the other examples of how countries introduced philosophies, the philosophy was like 5% of it. It actually was the alignment across the ecosystem that was the 95% of it. And so anybody can throw a strategy on a piece of paper. It's how you flow it through an entire country that's the hard part. And the United Kingdom is the size of the state of Georgia. Yeah. The United States is huge, and so we can't copy and paste what other countries have done if we want to be successful here. The way that I like to talk about it is soccer is the challenger sport in our country, and we are the challenger country in our sport. And so if we're going to win, we have to out-innovate, and we have to out-compete, and we have to out-align. It's somewhat trite, but people from around the world always say, anytime America actually puts their mind to something, you always do it. And I think the opportunity is to use, this summer, 26, LA 28, and the Women's World Cup in 2031, for us all to put our minds to that. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the philosophy, but that's about 5% of it. Ultimately, is around how we work together across all parts of not just the soccer ecosystem, but the sort of the community ecosystems more broadly to go win. So yeah, no, we're excited about that.
Our last question will be from one of Atlanta's best soccer players, Josh Grand of Emory University. Josh, are you captain of the Emory soccer team?
How'd you guys do this year?
We made the Final Four.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
So I guess another deeper soccer question, not to put you on the spot, but in a lot of big soccer powerhouse nations, it's kind of assumed that they'll try to earn towards a domestic coach. In England, for example, there was a lot of surprise and even backlash after they signed Tuchel, German manager. So what went into the decision of choosing Koch over Jesse Marsch?
And he's talking about the coach of the U.S. men's national soccer team, who is Pochettino's Spanish, Italian, Portuguese?
From Argentina. Argentina. But the
Not
Pochettino
American.
part Italian, but the great player from Argentina, played in Europe for a long time, coached in a long time in Europe. I think for so it was almost 2 years ago, we were in need of finding a coach for our men's and women's, for our men's national team, and playing a World Cup at home presents a unique opportunity, but also a unique challenge as you think about how you put not just your team forward, but your organization and sport forward to the country. And we felt that it was very important that everyone believe, and including us, that we were putting our team in the best position to be successful this summer. And we started by making a list of the top coaches in the world, all sorts of data. And for any of you who are soccer fans, there's all sorts of data. These analysts gave us these lists, and it's like, well, I could have come up with that. Like, there was all the names you knew in terms of who the best coaches are. Turns out they're pretty good coaches. And we created 3 buckets, and I'm sure many of you have gone through recruiting processes where you say, okay, here's our aspirational candidates. We don't think we're going to get much bite there, and then you kind of go down. And we actually never made it out of our first bucket. And the interest from the top coaches around the world in the U.S. men's national team program and in what U.S. soccer is doing more broadly was really quite awesome. And one of the coaches who everyone here would know who this coach is was like, you guys have finally woken up. And it's relatively new that they felt that way. And only a couple years prior, when we were making a decision coming out of the Men's World Cup in Qatar, at the time, U.S. soccer had been losing tens of millions of dollars a year. We had a lot of challenges we were navigating through. When we were going through a coaching search that time, we were not in tier A or tier B in terms of what you were sort of thinking about. And I think the growth of the organization, the growth of our sport, has meant that the best coaches in the world want to work here. And part of our job is to make it to where more of the best coaches in the world are American. But we're really excited about Maurizio and his staff, about their focus on the summer. They are, from day one, have been committed to not just put the team in the best position to be successful this summer, but also how do you leave a legacy and a culture of one that persists for a long time. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
We're going to be wrapping up our morning together. Please join me in a round of applause for JT Batson.
Thank you.